Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. For today's video, I will be reading my subscribers' spooky stories. So grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hi Daisy. I live in the Hampton Roads area in Virginia. We're known to have the biggest naval base in the world. Everyone here knows at least one person who is in the military. I work in a PPV, public-private venture, and the one I work for is kind of like apartments for junior sailors that are stationed here. I've worked for this PPV for 10 years, and I started working as a porter before transferring over to working at the front desk. While I was a porter, my main duties were walking the property to make sure trash is picked up and also deep cleaning rooms once a resident has moved out for the next person to move in. The property is huge and our main building has 6 floors. Each floor is assigned 2 porters and a maintenance tech. When I first started working at this place, I heard a few stories about some of the sailors unaliving themselves. One story told by my maintenance technician and our maintenance manager stood out to me. They were working overtime one weekend and a former technician was leaving the 4th floor. He saw 2 residents, all of them heading towards the elevator near the parking garage. The maintenance shop is close to the parking garage. One of the residents said he had to go back to his room quickly, while the other decided to take the elevator down and wait for him. The former technician also realized that he needed to return to the 4th floor. The resident who had to go back to his room took the same elevator up. Meanwhile, the technician took the other elevator since the first one had left. When the former technician got off the elevator, he heard a loud boom. He went to see what happened, and as soon as he got near the short storage, he saw the resident who had gone back to his room. The resident had used a gun on himself, died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The technician called for help and quit his job immediately. Now, onto my personal story. My partner had the day off, and the maintenance technician I worked with called out that day. I happened to be working on the 4th floor at the time. For the most part, it was a normal work day, and to be honest, it was a slow day too. I was walking towards one of the elevator banks near the front of the building because we have a little mini Next downstairs, and I wanted to get a couple of drinks. As I mentioned before, our main building is pretty huge, and it's easy to get lost if you're new or unfamiliar with the layout. I encountered a new resident who had his map out and was still having trouble finding his way to the front of the building. Since I was heading in the same general direction, I told him to follow me. As we were walking to the elevators, I saw a person in dark clothing who appeared to have long hair. We were getting close enough to see this person trying to get on the elevator. Then, it looked like they just disappeared out of nowhere. At first, I thought I was seeing things. When we got to the elevators, one of them was out of order, but the other one was working fine. I didn't want to mention seeing a figure, but the resident asked, "Did you see that figure?" I asked if he meant someone with dark clothes and long dark hair, and he nodded yes. We were both a bit shaken and just went downstairs, parting ways once we got there. After grabbing a bottle of water and a Pepsi, I decided to go to the maintenance shop to see if our maintenance secretary needed help putting away supplies, because I did not want to go back to the 4th floor by myself for the rest of the day. A few months later, some people were talking about paranormal experiences, and someone else mentioned seeing a similar figure near the same elevators, but on a different floor. However, since then, I haven't heard anything else about the figure. Hey Daisy. The story I have is one that still sends chills down my spine every time I work the night shift. For reference, I work as an ER veterinary assistant in an office building on the 3rd floor. Most of the time is spent doing paperwork at the front desk of our office. The front desk is the first thing you see when you walk into our office, so no one can pass me without me noticing. Plus, the night shift is usually pretty quiet, with only me and my coworkers there that late. On this particular night, I had 2 other coworkers working with me. I was eager to get out of there because I was tired and ready to sleep, so I kept looking at the clock. My job requires me to write down the time when a patient enters our office, so I look at the clock a lot anyway. At about 11:45, both my coworkers came from the back office and said they were running down to the lobby to get some coffee and asked if I wanted anything. They left down the hallway to the elevators, and I continued doing paperwork and watching a show on Netflix. About 5 minutes later, at 11:50, I heard the elevator chime and thought, well, that was quick. But no one had walked down the hallway. It was creepy, and since I get spooked easily, I called the security guard at the front desk in the lobby to see if he was messing with me because we were friends. He said no. He hadn't gotten up to do his midnight rounds yet, so it couldn't have been him. I decided to ignore it, hung up, and went back to watching my show. 10 minutes later, at midnight, I heard the elevator chime again, and this time I heard voices of my coworkers and the security guard laughing about something. My coworkers made their way down the hallway as the security guard went up more floors to do his rounds. As my coworkers walked in, I just looked up and smiled at them as they made their way back to their offices. Here's where things get weird. At about 12:15, the elevator chimed again for our floor, but no one came out. I yelled back to my coworkers and said something like, "Abel's really making sure he does his job right tonight," assuming it was the guard checking floors. My coworkers laughed from the back rooms and agreed. A couple more minutes went by, and at 12:30, the elevator chimed for a 3rd time. I must have looked pale, because walking down the hallway were my 2 coworkers with coffee in hand. They saw how scared I was and asked if I was okay. I told them that they had just walked in a couple of minutes ago, and I was talking to them earlier. They looked confused and said they hadn't left the break room until just now. I think I looked horrified enough because the doctor told me to go home early and get some sleep. I didn't hesitate and packed up and left. On the way out, I asked the security guard if he had ridden the elevator with my coworkers when he was doing his midnight rounds. He said he had, even though they had barely just walked in the office, and he had done his check 30 minutes ago. I freaked out and didn't take another shift for a long time. Nothing has happened since, but whatever it was that night was extremely horrifying. Hi Daisy, my name is Vanessa. I recently started watching your videos and wanted to share some of my own experiences. I work as a registered nurse and travel to different facilities for work. On this particular day, I was working at a facility I had only visited maybe twice before. It was a really old building. It even had a dumbwaiter that went from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor. The 1st floor is mostly used for storage and administrative offices, while the 2nd floor is where the nursing stations are and the patients' rooms. No one ever really goes to the 1st floor, and I had never been there before that night. It was about 10:30 p.m., and I was getting ready for a shift change soon, so I started stocking up on supplies and getting things in order. Then, I noticed that I needed a special liquid feeding for a patient, but I couldn't find any in our station. So, I went to the other nurses' station where 3 other staff members were sitting. I asked them where I could find the specific feeding I was looking for. They all exchanged looks and hesitated before one of them said, "They're downstairs on the 1st floor." Since I wasn't familiar with the layout of the facility, I asked if someone could accompany me or provide directions. However, they nervously laughed and replied, "Oh no, we're not going down there." They proceeded to tell me that the facility was haunted, with the activity being particularly intense on the 1st floor, so they always avoided going there. Despite their warnings, I didn't really believe them, so I asked again if they could just tell me how to get there. This facility was a psych facility, so everything was locked. They gave me the key and told me which way to go. Then, one of them said, "Hold on, let's tell Miguel to go with her." Miguel was the only male nurse on staff, so they thought it was appropriate for him to accompany me. They paged Miguel to the station. When he arrived, they told him, all laughing, "Hey Miguel, she needs to go downstairs. Go with her." He became nervous and started shaking his head no, saying he did not want to go. Feeling a bit annoyed, I said, "Forget it, I'll just go by myself." I started walking towards the door that led downstairs. But then Miguel said, "Okay, fine, I'll go with you. I can't let you go by yourself." After he said that, I did start to get nervous. But why was he so scared? Maybe this place was haunted. So, we walked to the door and unlocked it, which led downstairs. There was a staircase, a very wide staircase with old wood. The 1st floor was underground, so it wasn't very bright down there, even though the lights were on. When we got to the bottom of the stairs, we walked about 20 feet. The other nurse was a few feet in front of me when I suddenly felt scared and stopped. I turned to the right and just froze. At the same time, the nurse also stopped. We both asked each other, "Did you feel that?" He said he felt cold, with chills on the back of his neck. I felt the same way. I said, "Forget this," and started to walk back towards the stairs when I heard him say, "Vanessa, look, it's a little girl." He kept repeating that there was a little girl there, saying she was wearing a veil halfway down her face. I didn't turn to look. I just started walking quickly towards the stairs. When I reached the stairs, I began to almost run up them. About halfway up, I heard him coming up behind me. The doors at the top didn't have a lock from the inside, but when I tried to open it, the door wouldn't budge. I became desperate and started pulling at the door, feeling intense fear. As a child, I was raised in the Jehovah's Witness religion, so I began to say, "Oh Jehovah, please help, Jehovah," repeating it several times. By this time, the male nurse had already approached the top of the stairs and started trying to open the door as well. When the door wouldn't open for him either, he started to pray. Then suddenly, the door opened. We ran out of there so fast. The other nurses at the station asked, "What happened? You guys look so scared." "We told you." They shared that people had reported seeing a little girl and a man downstairs. We told them that the male nurse had seen the little girl. That's when I knew he wasn't lying about what he had seen. The owner of the registry company I work for is also a good friend of mine, and sometimes works shifts herself when she can't find anyone else. She happened to be coming in for the next shift after mine, so I told her what had happened and jokingly said, "Don't send me here again." She thought I was serious and told the director of nursing that the male nurse had scared me and that I didn't want to return to the facility. A few weeks later, I went back, and the male nurse who had accompanied me downstairs told me he had gotten in trouble for scaring the registry nurses because they didn't want to come back. I explained that I was only joking when I said I wasn't coming back. Now, I go there pretty often. I only heard a whisper since that night, but I've never dared to go back downstairs. And I always spray holy water on myself before starting my shift. Hi Daisy, my name is Alan, and I'd like to share with you my scary story. I've been working as a server for my mom's catering business for a couple of years now, and I've experienced some paranormal activity while I'm at work. So, the story took place at a small venue located in a small town outside of my city. Some of the venues we work at are old and have a lot of history, and this house was one of them. When I first got there, the moment I stepped in the house, I got an uncomfortable feeling. I brushed it off and went back to work. We started to unload the stuff that we brought, and we put it all in the kitchen. When I put some of our boxes on the kitchen counter, with the corner of my eye, I could see somebody run across the hallway that was by the kitchen. A couple of hours went by, and I was taking a break with the other workers. We were talking to the owners of the venue when they had told us that in the 1900s, a man escaped from a nearby prison and hid in the house. The owners at the time were away, and the man hid in a big wooden box on the 3rd floor. Unfortunately, he was locked in there and he died. The owner said that sometimes they would hear banging in the 3rd floor where the man died, as if someone was trying to escape from a box. Just to clarify, the box he died in isn't in the house anymore. After they told us that scary story, they told us that the spirit of the man who died there likes to play tricks on the catering staff that come and work at the venue. They said that most of the time, the staff complain that they keep seeing figures with the corner of their eyes. Then I remembered my experience in the kitchen earlier. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't think anyone would believe me. So that was it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to everyone that wrote in their spooky stories. It was something about these stories, paranormal encounters at work. It just hits a little bit different because you have to go back the next day, and that's the last thing you want to do after experiencing something like these stories mentioned. Like I would clock out, I would call in for work for sure. But let me know if you have something similar that has happened. Send it in at daicyspooks@gmail.com. I would love to hear about the spooky tea. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys all in my next one. Bye.